Chair.
Yes, sir. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. Chairman Scott and to our ranking member for holding this hearing. I so appreciate it. This is such an issue, as you can only imagine and hear right now across the country, including in Nevada. So I thank you, the panelists, for your candor and not taking the bait sometimes when some of my colleagues try to bait you into some conversations. The truth matters, and most importantly, how do we address housing matters, and being honest about it. So let me talk a little bit about Nevada, because one of the things I do know, it is a supply issue. There's no doubt about it. We have to address the supply. But we also have to address the affordability. I have working families that can't afford homes. So it's not just the supply. It's how do we ensure that no matter your station in life, you can afford that home, because the homes that are being built in my state are a little bit more costly, quite honestly, because we got to get federal land. 80% of the land is owned by the federal government. So the first step in building housing is getting that land from the federal government. That's the first cost that now is associated with building those homes. So now we have to figure out how we level the playing field so we can lower those costs. It is about building, but it's also the financing that goes into that building to ensure that we can keep some of those costs low enough for those families, those working families, to be able to afford these homes. And one of those programs that we have at the federal level that I still believe in, I think we need to continue to utilize it and modernize it, is the home program. And so let me, Ms. Willis, let me ask you, I have a bill, which is the home bill, which is S 948. And what it does is the home program that was, I want to say it was created in 1994, has not been reauthorized, reformed, or anything since 1994. So what I've done is taken it, updated it to make sure it works better for our families and our communities, and introduced it yesterday. So Ms. Willis, can I ask you, how does the home program contribute to building more affordable homes for those working families, like in my state, where we have to address one key piece of that cost was getting that federal land first?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And also thank you for your leadership in introducing the legislation to improve the home program. Home, as you know, it acts as, it's another financing structure to allow deals to pencil out. And so it is a critical source of gap financing, and so it is important. So we would certainly love to continue working with you to improve homes so that it better supports CHODOs, which are community housing development organizations, so that they can better serve extremely low-income households.
Thank you. And then, Dr. Glazier, thank you so much. I had a question for you on manufactured homes, but you answered it, and I thank you for your candor there. But let me ask you this. You also talked a little bit about federal land, and can you expand on your view that using federal land for housing is not by itself going to meet the affordable housing needs of this country? I'm curious if you would expand on that thought a little bit more.
So thank you very much for your question, and thank you for your interest in manufactured homes as well. And I'm also interested in the idea of putting pre-zoning federal land for manufactured housing. We can think about combining the two as well. I think all federal land should be taken on a case-by-case basis. And we should think about it. My comment, I don't think it's going to solve America's affordable housing problem, is because it's not in places where is often not in the places where we have an affordability crisis, right? And there are many parts of America which just don't have substantial amounts of federal land anywhere nearby. I mean, it's impossible to imagine in Greater Boston what federal land we would use to solve that problem. But there are parts of America where there is federal land. And I believe strongly that we should use serious analysis and think about whether or not more of that federal land should be allocated towards housing. I will just say, if we do allocate it towards housing, let's figure out a way to get as much housing on it as possible. And I think things like large-scale manufactured housing is one way of doing that.
Thank you,
Senator.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why a piece of legislation that I have introduced in another committee is a Lands Management Act. Clark County particularly focuses on how we get more of that federal land for our use for economic development, but also for housing. That is unique, by the way, to the Western states. Most of my colleagues don't have to come to the legislature to pass legislation to get land for housing. We do. And so I appreciate your comments around there as well. And then, Ms. Willis, thank you. One final thing, and let me just stress the federal home loan banks. I think there's a role for them to play. and it's not a new role, it's one that is in their original charter that they're required to participate in, which is this idea that they are supposed to and obligated to think about how they invest in housing and economic development in our communities. And I just, Ms. Willis, do you think federal home loan banks can do more to support housing?
Sure, yes. I would say that with, we need every use of every resource available to address the affordable housing crisis and homelessness crisis. And I really do applaud you for looking at common sense ways to do that and to increase those resources. And we would certainly love to continue working with you and your team and your staff to ensure that those new resources better serve extremely low-income households.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.